Hello, and welcome to the session on reference implementations for comprehensive learner record and open badges. I'm going to be demonstrating the reference implementations that we have and describing how you can use them to assist your certification. The whole thing is going to revolve around, this is going to be a live demo, so apologize in advance for any typos or misclicks. It's all going to be, I'm going to go to this site here, dc.imsglobal.org. And if you would like to follow along, feel free to go there as well. So let me get out of here. And go to the website. And could one of you unmute and just let me know if you actually see what I'm presenting here?
Yeah, I'm able to see it, Andy.
Great, thanks, Miles. Miles is also from IMS. By the way, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Andy Miller. I'm a technical standards architect at IMS Global, and I focus on the comprehensive learner record and open badges 2.1 specification, actually all the whole specification, but in particular what we're going to go over here is Badge Connect, which is the new 2.1 version of the open badge specification. This page that we're looking at here.
Actually, Andy, I did see a comment down in Emily mentioned she can see her screen, but not the presenter's video. Is that just Andy's video to himself? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no video, just a screen. Is that clear? Oh, I see. She can't see maybe if anybody else is showing, instead of a picture, showing a video. I don't know. That sounds like, okay.
Thanks,
Jeff is solving that problem. All right, so this page has reference implementations for both Badge Connect and Comprehensive Learner Record. When you get to the certification guide, you're going to see that all of the certifications are divided into consumer and provider roles. Consumers are applications that initiate requests, and providers are applications that respond to those requests. When you go through the certification process, if your application is a provider, that is, it responds to requests, then the certification system will act as a consumer and make requests or initiate requests to your provider application. We have reference implementations for both sides of that exchange. And the way you would use these to help prepare for certification is that, for example, if you wanted to be certified as in a provider role, then you would use this consumer reference implementation to initiate requests against your provider, and vice versa. Let me start. I'm going to open up actually both of these. And so now you'll see we have two applications. I have to move this little thingy out of the way here. See if I can get it over there. All right, so now we have a consumer and a provider application. And for this demonstration, I'm going to pretend that I wanted to certify my provider over here. And in that case, then the consumer test system is going to be acting as a consumer. I'm sorry, the certification test system is going to act as a consumer. And so the first thing you'll need to do is set up the OAuth authorization process. And that is here as a begin a new registration. This Open Badges uses dynamic registration, and to initiate that, you need to give it the domain of your provider. In this case, that would be your application. And you're going to see that this reference implementation actually steps through every step of the dynamic registration individually, and so does the certification test system. But in real life, this exchange will be almost invisible to the user. The first step is to get a manifest, and you'll see the provider responded with the manifest that's required. Then you use that to register your, this consumer is registering with your provider, and your provider would return a response that looks like this. Then using that registration, you would request an authorization code. Open Badges uses the authorization code grant flow for requesting tokens. And so you would you'll need to respond to this request authorization. In this case, your application would then prompt the consumer to sign in as who they are, because you're going to generate a token that grants the application access to this user's badges. So in this case, it's Alice. So Alice is forced to log in because she needs to approve this request. And so in this case, this is the approval process. Yours might look different than this. You just say, yes, allow that. And we got back a response saying that that was okay. Now, using that code, I'm going to request an access token, and I got back an access token. Once I have that token, the test system is then going to call the endpoints on your provider that are appropriate for the kind of certification you are seeking. So if, for example, you were a consumer read, that would mean provider read, that means you respond to the get assertions endpoint. And so we can experiment with that here. It just issued that request and it got back a response that's okay, and here are the assertions. If, on the other hand, you were your application was a consumer right, that is, you can post badges when they become available, then you would use this post profile. And you respond to post profiles, then you would use this post profile to have the reference implementation post a profile to your system, and then you respond. In this case, you need to respond with a copy of the profile that was just posted. That's how these applications work and how you can use them with for certification. Let me go through to the CLR. It's a little bit more complicated. So let me open up those two. The reason it's more complicated is that whereas Badge Connect only supports dynamic registration, CLR actually supports both or either dynamic registration or manual registration. That is, your application can choose to implement dynamic registration or not, and to implement manual registration or not. Right now, the certification system only uses manual registration. So you'll need to implement a manual registration process to pass certification. Dynamic registration works exactly as it worked for open badges. So let's just walk through what it would look like for manual registration. So it starts again, I'm going to start it in this case from the consumer side. And I'm going to pick that I want to do a manual registration. And in this case, since we've already seen authorization code grant flow, let's register for client credentials grant flow. And you may notice that that's also a difference with Open Badges. Open Badges only supports authorization code grant. In the CLR specification, applications can use client credentials. So let's start the registration for client credentials. This, let's see, so we have to fill in a bunch of information from the provider. Normally in dynamic registration, this is how we would get all this information from that initial registration step. So let's go over to the provider and say we're registering a client credentials consumer. And so it generates all this information, and we need to copy all of this back over to the client. Client ID, client secret, the token endpoint that the provider is providing. And the base URL. This is the base URL for each of the endpoints. So every endpoint must include the IMS CLR v1.0, and that's where this one is. Okay, then I'm still on now I'm on the consumer. I'm finishing the registration with that provider. I'm going to click register. And now you see that the next step is to request a token. So because this is client credentials, we can skip the step of asking for an authorization code and then exchanging that code and go right to requesting a token. And so we get back a token down here. And once I have that token, then I can again go through the various, exercise the various endpoints that your application has implemented. You'll see that certification breaks up these endpoints into groups, including read, which is being able to get a CLR, write, which is being able to post a CLR or delete a CLR, and then the verification endpoints, which includes getting an assertion, getting a CLR, getting an endorsement, or getting a public key or a revocation list. And let's try the get CLRs and submit that. And we get back a set of CLRs, and I believe signed CLRs are at the bottom of this as well. So that's how those work. They wanted to show you another thing that both of these support, or rather the provider, both providers support, and that is they both support a Swagger UI. So this is available, and you can use this if you're familiar with Swagger. You already will know how to use this, but let me open it up. So the Swagger UI uses an open API definition file that describes the entire CLR, data model and services or endpoints. And Swagger UI then can generate a UI. This is all JavaScript. It's all running in the client against that API. And the endpoint that I just called was get CLRs. I'm going to open this up without authorizing and try it out, and you'll see that I got back a unauthorized request as a response, a 401 unauthorized request. Now, let me try authorize, and I'm going to ask for not read only, not that get request. I just want to show you how this would work. So now I'm authorized. I actually have a token. I'm going to try this again. And this time I get back a 403 because it was forbidden. And then let's just one more time, just for kicks, I'll show you. You can log out, and in this case, I'll just ask for everything. And let's do one more trying this out. And I get back a 200 with all of those. So the we have a Swagger UI that you can use to during development to sort of experiment with how the endpoints work and what's expected when they return. And then when you're getting ready to certify, you can use the reference implementations to essentially go through the steps in the same way that you will need to go through them with the certification test system. And I think that's it. So let's, if there are some questions that haven't been answered, what do you guys think? I see Miles and Jeff, I think you've been watching the chat.
Say, Andy, I know sometimes we get this question, but how are these tools designed to help folks that are in the early stages of implementing beyond just certification at the end stage?
Well, Swagger, I think, is a nice tool for doing that, but also I actually use these reference implementations to help develop the certification test suite, so that I could actually, as I was building out the test suite and making various requests, I knew that the reference implementations returned a conformant, were acting in a conformant way, so I could build up the tests. As I was building them, I was actually constantly sort of making requests back to the reference implementations just to make sure that everything was communicating correctly. So in the same way, I think you could use those. We also have the source code for these available. Back on the home page, there's links to GitHub. And you can use, you can actually find the source code for all of these reference implementations up on GitHub, and you'll need access, but I think you described that in the chat earlier. And so you can use that code to as a model for how you would actually implement these. The third thing is that I mentioned open API files, and we have them for both the Badge Connect and the CLR spec. And Swagger uses them. I demoed that on how Swagger can interpret that open API file and generate an entire UI that's all running in the client. Well, you can also generate static code for this I think something like 42 different languages or something. It's some amazing number of languages. So you can basically take this, the OpenAPI file, run it through this code generator for the language of your preferred language, and it will spit out at least the framework of a working system in your code. And then you can use that to modify it to for your particular circumstances. And you can find all of that, both the OpenAPI file as well as the conformance guide, as well as links to, I believe, links to the GitHub repos up on the IMS website at the locations that I think Jeff has already posted into the chat. Does anybody else have any questions? Guess not. Jeff, you want to proxy any, be a surrogate and have any other questions that maybe you're aware of?
No, I think this is great. Maybe just provide a way for folks to ask questions after the fact if they check out these tools. I know one way at any time when you need technical support, you may not be aware, but IMS does have a support portal at imsglobal.org. So anytime you can just submit a message there and it'll get routed to the right staff member. Unless you want to hit up Andy directly with his email or cell phone. I know he's always open for that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy.
There is a question. Dominic asked, do we need to request access to the repo CLR reference implementation?
Yes, and I have been struggling to paste a URL into the chat for that. My copy and paste is strangely going very haywire. So allow me to, but right. And we should clarify too that it's access to the IMS private repositories is part of the benefits of being a contributing member to IMS. So if you request access through the form I'm about to provide, the IMS staff will check your level of membership. So contributing members is who have access to the source code. There we go. Finally worked.
Thanks, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark asked, what's the difference between get a CLR and get an assertion? Get a CLR will return an entire CLR, including all of the assertions within that CLR. And get assertion will just return a single specific assertion. Get assertion is falls within the verification endpoint. So one of the steps of hosted verification is that the consumer will request a single assertion or the CLR if they're verifying the CLR. But if they are verifying an assertion, they will request a copy essentially of that specific assertion. And then in the way verification works, that copy, the one that you receive during verification, actually replaces whatever the assertion that you have in hand. That way, if you initially received the assertion a year ago, and then you want to verify it and make sure it's still valid, you would do a get assertion to get it, and then examine the properties of that one that you received to determine if it is valid. Okay, I think with that, we'll call it a day, and I hope to see a lot of questions and a lot of interaction with our specifications and a lot of success. Thanks, everybody.